Hello and welcome to Read Through the Word. My name is Dawn. Today is Saturday, August 16th, and our lesson is called What's Missing? We're going to talk about Jeremiah chapter 27, 19 through 22. For the Lord of Heaven's armies has spoken about the pillars in front of the temple, the great bronze basin called the sea, the water carts, and the other ceremonial articles. King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon left them here when he exiled Jehoiachin, son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, to Babylon, along with all the other nobles of Judah and Jerusalem. Yes, this is what the Lord of Heaven's army, this is what the Lord of Heaven's armies, the God of Israel, says about the precious things still in the temple, in the palace of Judah's king and in Jerusalem. They will be carried away to Babylon and will stay there until I send for them, says the Lord. Then I will bring them back to Jerusalem again. It's a sad part of the story, isn't it? This beautiful, the beautiful temple that had been built and all the furnishings and the silver, the gold, the precious things taken to Babylon. So this is saying what's going to happen in our reading for today. And just to note that in Jeremiah chapter 52:17, we see the fulfillment of this. The Babylonians broke up the bronze pillars in front of the Lord's temple, the bronze water carts, and the great bronze basin called the sea. And they carried all the bronze away to Babylon. And it said the weight on these bronze articles was too great to be measured. So in Jeremiah 27, he says this is what's going to happen. And sure enough, that's fulfilled in Jeremiah 52. So these things are carried off. Well, I want to talk about this particular article a little bit. The bronze basin, the bronze sea, the bronze laver. It's called a couple different things than what I had read. On that, the world may know, which is a fantastic, they have a lot of fantastic articles and definitions. It says the bronze sea was, defining it, the bronze basin at the entrance to the tabernacle used for ceremonial purification before sacrifices were made. It also symbolized God's forgiveness after sacrifices were made. Solomon commissioned a large basin for the temple at Jerusalem. It was over 15 feet in diameter and 7 feet high. It weighed over 25 tons and held 13,000 gallons of water. It sat on the backs of 12 oxen, 3 also bronze, 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. So this was enormous for a purification thing. And I also put a link in there to an article on gotquestions.org. They had some interesting things to talk about too. One of the things that was said was that when they moved around with the tabernacle, the bronze sea or the bronze laver was not as big. But once the temple was built, it was much bigger. It was usually positioned between the temple and the altar. It was where the priests would wash their hands and feet before entering the temple of the Lord, and also before going to the altar for certain sacrifices. However, when they built the temple, they made this much bigger. And the measurements, like I just said here, over 14 feet diameter, over 7 feet high. And in the article, the Got Questions article, it said that because it was so big, it is possible that the priests went in with their whole body. They actually, there was room in this thing for them to get their whole selves in it. So that may have been what happened. But it was huge. I can't imagine what it took to, when we just say, the Babylonians came and took all the stuff out of the temple and took it away. And we just say, okay. But think of what that really means for something of this size. Interesting to note, too, is that in Ezra chapter 1, verses 7 through 10, it talks about the articles that were brought back. They're coming out of exile back to Jerusalem, and it lists some of the articles that they brought back. there's no specific mention of the bronze sea. It doesn't mean it wasn't brought back, but there is no specific mention of it. So, if they didn't bring it back, they would have had to rebuild it. We're just not sure, but it was huge. Also, this was interesting. It says it is significant, this is from gotquestions.org, that the bronze laver or the bronze sea was the last object to be encountered before entering the tabernacle. This was something that they were used to seeing every day. This was a big part of what they did. And it was part of their ritual. It was there, like every day, it was constantly being used before making sacrifices and especially before going into the temple for priests to cleanse themselves, like a picture of, cleansing oneself before entering the presence of God in the temple. And so not only would it have been missed because it was so big, but it was missed because it was common. It was used all the time. And I wonder if even after a while it was, I don't want to say taken for granted, but maybe it was just this thing. Okay, there's this thing here. We're used to it. This is what we do every day. We do this purification ritual. We go in the temple. I wonder if it was one of those things that almost meant a lot more once it was gone. In other words, to have such a large thing that was such an important and integral part of their daily practices and worship, to have that gone would have left a very deep, kind of hole, so to speak. It would have left a very clear reminder of how different things were, of the destruction of things. It would have been this everyday constant source of pain. It's gone. This thing that we just did every day, we were used to it. It was always there, and it's gone. And we know, of course, that the actual ritual of them washing their hands and feet, we know that's not what made them clean. We know that God makes a person clean, and that when God asks, when he asked the Israelites to do these practices, he wasn't saying, look, yeah, sure, go ahead. When you put your hands and feet in the water, that absolutely means that you are clean. The heart is what makes us clean, right? What's inside of us is what makes us clean. And what God does in our life makes us clean. But this was an important ritual because it was a picture, a symbolism every day to remind these priests when they would go into the temple, to remind them to take a moment to think, where's my heart? And am I entering into the presence of God with a spirit and a heart that's clean? So it didn't provide salvation. It didn't provide, it's not what made someone clean, but it was a very important part that God had as a part of their practices, as a picture and a reminder. And I wonder if there's certain things that we have in our life that maybe simple, it could be something simple practices that we have on a daily basis, a weekly basis, whatever it is. And what if that thing was suddenly no longer possible for you? And it's interesting to think about, maybe when you think about if you didn't have it anymore, maybe you think, I'm not sure that's even serving its purpose. Maybe you'll find that. Or maybe you'll find that it was a really important thing. And even though it seemed small, or it just seemed part of the routine and maybe just even somewhat taken for granted, the idea of what if I didn't have that practice every day? How would it affect my life? How would it affect my focus and my heart and my, just my connection with God throughout the day? How does it affect the way that I approach my day, approach my life? And again, we know that our daily practices are not what saves us. but they are important because they keep us connecting with God, connecting with the Spirit, learning from God, digging into the Bible, connecting with other people. These practices that continually grow us and teach us and connect us with God and others, they are important. And maybe it's good to kind of take stock of them and think, what if, are there any of those things that if suddenly they were taken away, that it would be really difficult? And to maybe rethink about the importance of them, or to just rethink about the gratitude we have for those practices, or, just investing in them. So we don't need to worship our daily practices, right? That's not what God is asking, but we can appreciate the clarity and the significance and the connection that they can bring. Thanks for joining me here today, friends, and we'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.